What's up, everybody? I'm Caleb Ochoa, also known as NFL Caleb 22, and this is Betting the NFL, your Week 14 edition of the NFL season. So, as always, I'm here with me. Here with me is my co-host, Derek Wesley, also known as DWeezy. What's going on, man?
Not much, another week. We're creeping up on the playoffs. As my man said, we're going into week 14. They added a week to the season, so there's not that many weeks left. And, you know, I definitely think it's harder to make money in the playoffs. Lines are sharper. You got, less favorable matchups, usually better teams facing off. So, that window for the regular season to capitalize on some of these angles is starting to come to a close.
Absolutely. We'll say what's up to Adelia. What's going on? Nice to have you. And say what's up for Dad. What's going on? Um, Also, everybody who's watching, thanks for tuning in. Great to have you here. And as always, we will start with what happened last week in week 13, and we'll go through it. The favorites against the spread, 8-5. Favorites overall, 98, 85, 10 to win that at 53%. Home teams, terrible week for home teams. They went just 3-10 overall. They've been bad. They haven't been good this year. 86, 97, and 10 against the spread. 47% winning percentage. And this was a big week for road favorites. 6-1. Road favorites overall have been pretty dominant. 43, 31, and 4. 58.1% winning percentage on road favorites. They're hitting that at a pretty strong rate there. So definitely look out for that. And then overall, overs, there was a lot of points scored this week. We haven't seen very much of that this season, but they hit with 9 to just 4 unders. But still, unders still have the majority of the season. 82 overs and 110 unders. Unders still added 57.3%. But with all that said, what do you think about anything that stands out to you about these numbers?
I think a couple of the overs we saw come in this past week were more due to favorable matchups, good teams playing other good teams. And to a certain degree, you tend to expect a little bit better scoring there. Uh, but as you said, the unders has still been very prevalent throughout this season, um, and potentially something to keep an eye on at the early starts of next season. Because for whatever reason, it just seems these books have been unwilling to adjust to the number, and we've been saying it basically from week one that unders have been coming in and continue to come in, and a week like this past week is more an outlier than a budding trend. So I think the unders, there's Thursday night being a prime example where regardless of what the book puts the number at, if we see another New England game like we've seen the past 2 weeks, you know, they're gonna need to put the number, the total at 20 for the over or for the under to not come in. So I do, a lot of bad quarterback play out there has definitely helped a lot of these unders. And as you mentioned, last week was a good week for some of the road favorites out there. I was riding with a couple, and that came through for me. I'll get into that in a little bit, as one of which was
Mhm.
my best play on the week, and possibly the biggest blowout. I'm not quite sure, but definitely in contention for that. Um, so yeah, I definitely think as we get to the playoffs and for some of these lower teams in the cellar, I think that as we get towards the end of the season, we're seeing more of a tanking mentality. So depending on some of these matchups, the better team's gonna win regardless whether they're on the road or at home. So, I definitely think there's a couple, factors that sort of, leaned one way or another why this last week turned out the way it did. But I do, for the most part, expect, this under trend to continue strongly for the rest of the season.
All right. Man Mizell says, thanks for tuning in, man. But he says $400 on Dallas this week sound good. Well, I don't want to spoil my pick, but I'm feeling good about it. I'm feeling good about my team. So we'll get into the picks on the second half part of the show. But we'll definitely get into that game. But before we do that, I want to get to the biggest upset of the week, and that came in the Cardinals plus 6.5 at the Pittsburgh Steelers. They win it 24-10. And I definitely, this was one of my picks. I definitely was on the wrong side of this one. I'd had the Steelers. But also, going into it, you don't expect an injury to the starting quarterback. You also don't expect a big ass weather delay during the game. Not too sure how much the weather delay affected the outcome of the game. But losing your starting quarterback, obviously, that's going to be a big effect, especially when we didn't really see them able to build off what they did the previous week and having to putting up a lot of yards that week. Kenny Pickett wasn't able to build on it because he got hurt, and then you throwing Trubisky out there, all cold and whatnot, especially coming off the weather delay. So he's super cold. Um, their offense didn't really get going at all. That's why they only scored 10 points. And then on the other side, we've seen so many times throughout the season that the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is going to save them. They didn't do that this week. They get hammered by James Conner in this Cardinals run game. He goes off for like 105 yards and 2 touchdowns, just kind of pounds away at them, and they couldn't really do anything to stop them. And that's kind of why they kind of just got grinded out and lost this game because they couldn't really do much to counter on offensively themselves.
Yeah, you're definitely not factoring in any sort of injury factor when you're talking about a player coming in healthy. Now, if Pickett had been banged up the week prior or something to that effect, maybe then you look to keep that in mind as you're handicapping a game, but you definitely don't act under the assumption that somebody's just going to get outright hurt and not be able to come back into the game. So that definitely hurts your chances if you were back in Pittsburgh in this game. Um, you know, it's part of this, we've seen Kyler Murray return back this season, and to some degree lead a little bit of a spark in the Arizona offense. I think one thing this year, Arizona has shown that uh, the issues more on the defensive side than the offensive side yet necessarily. Yes, they do need to make additions to the offensive side, um, but not to say that they're better at on the offensive side of the ball, but it's less of a concern than what their defense has been. But yes, they fighting hard all season long and coming into this game, I think, that was easy to expect. And when Pickett went down, I think that really signified the end of, Pittsburgh backers in this game as we see the final score ending up uh, as it was. Something I do think would be interesting to look at here recently. There's been a lot of talk about trends of ba- teams winning after a coach being fired. Well, I'd be curious to see what the numbers say about those teams in their second game after said coach being fired, and if there's any, almost that zigzag pattern, but a regression. Even a bad team, they're basically saying you want to play them after firing the coach. Well, I'm curious what the numbers say when that team goes into the second game. Uh, and I think
Yeah.
possibly that's what we saw here with Pittsburgh. You had that spark and that energy coming off of the Canada firing, and coming into game, basically the second game, there's not that same energy there.
Yeah, but that was my thing. I don't think you really got a chance because Pickett went out in the first half. Maybe he could have done something later on as the game continued and still continued that hot spark. But I don't think we really got a chance to see that. But next we got the bad beat of the week, and that came in the Tennessee Titans versus Indianapolis Colts. The Colts win it 31-28. Obviously this game went into overtime, and overtime games are, you're gonna feel like you got a bad beat here because it could have gone either way throughout the game. It's always a close matchup. So those are always tough losses to kind of swallow overtime games. But especially in this one though, because I mean it probably shouldn't have been in overtime to begin with, considering the Titans missed the extra point, and it was due to because their punter had two of his kicks blocked, and he got hurt on one of them. So then the punter could hold the snap. So Tannehill has to come in and do the backup snapping. The backup holding. Um, and I guess I guess whatever the process was, that he didn't get it down correctly. And then Nick Folk missed that extra point, and that kind of ties up the game. But also they got the lead, and then they couldn't hold the Colts from coming back, tying it up at the end, and then they just kind of left it up in the overtime, and they lost it there. But yeah, it's tough beat when you lose in that sort of way, and that's why I think it was the bad beat of the week.
Yes, if you were a Tennessee backer in this game, you are definitely looking at this game as probably the worst beat of the week. Now, if you were back in the Colts like I was last week, you're sitting here grinning ear from ear, going, "Yo, any game you can get Tannehill on the other side of the field, do it." And we see what occurred here. Yeah, if you were back in the Colts, there was a number of instances in this game where you felt like you were going to lose because they kept coming back, and it might have needed a little bit of a miracle, but we seemed to get, we got Tannehill out there and he delivered for us. So, as a Colts backer, I can't be too mad at this game. But yes, if you had money on the Tennessee Titans, whether it be the money line or I'm not quite sure what the number closed at, but it was a fairly small spread. So I'm pretty sure if we're talking about a game where they win by a field goal, you're covering whatever spread was out there. Um, so yeah, it is definitely a rough one for those Tennessee betters.
Yeah, all right. We'll get to our records of the week. I had a good week. I went 3-2, winning week for me. But back to glad to be back on the winning track. My best pick, which was a game that I think we were in the opposite sides of, and that was the Kansas City Chiefs at the Green Bay Packers. I had the Packers plus 5.5. They do win the ball game, 19-27. And yeah, I think you were. I was correct. You were on the Packers on this one, right?
No, I was on the other side of this one with the Chiefs.
I mean, you were on the Chiefs. I mean, that's what I meant. You were on the
Yeah.
Chiefs, and I was on the Packers. And yeah, that's why I said one of us was gonna have a winning week because we were different. We were differing a little bit. It just happened to be me. But yeah, I was just really confident in the Packers starting to heat up in recent weeks, and Jordan Love especially had been playing really well. And I thought he would continue that. He was making some really great throws in this game. He had 3 touchdowns, 267 yards. So yeah, I really trust. But the big thing I didn't trust was this Chiefs receiving game. Like we've seen it. We've seen it multiple times this season. They just can't get it together. These receivers are just not good. I mean, they're dropping all kinds of balls. Patrick Mahomes is like getting frustrated with them. I mean, he's only going to, the whole game he's just going to receive rights because that's all who can catch the ball or all who can get open. And it's him because a lot of time they're covering Travis Kelce, but he didn't get a lot of balls. He only got like 4 catches in this game. Um, but that was it. I mean, it's very dysfunctional with the receiving game. What's going on there, and that's how it can result in only 19 points for them. Um, and I think going forward, if the Packers continue to be undervalued as they were in this game, especially because they were a 5.5 point dog at home, I think that was a complete, and that's why I took it right away because I thought they were being undervalued here. They continue being undervalued like they were. I think they're a good bet going forward.
Yes, the Packers definitely went out there and pulled off the upset of the week. It's that simple. I think this is just another prime case of this Kansas City Chiefs team is not the Chiefs that we expect. Uh, yes, there's a lot of noise out there about the officiating, and sadly, there is always something about the officiating that can be said. Um, there was definitely some bad calls all the way around, especially in this game. Uh, but I think this is another instance where we see this Kansas City offense is not the same without Eric Bieniemy, whether it was behind the scenes, whether it was directly calling the plays or not. His influence on this offense and that not being there, I think, in a lot of ways, is a big reason why we're starting to see some of these cracks in the offense of the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is a game that the Chiefs should have probably gone out there and won in a dominating fashion. If it Even the Chiefs team last year, they may have not been winning in those instances where they were a double-digit favorite, covering the spread, but they were still winning the games. And against lesser talent, they were still, playing at a notable level, and we're just not seeing that this season. So yes, this is definitely a strong upset. Now, not one of us had a winning week. Both of us had a winning week because I was able to go
Okay,
three
both
and
of us.
two. Finally got off the schneid of hitting a push when what seemed like the past month every week, at least one, coming in 3-2. Um, Almost lost one in the Detroit New Orleans games as Detroit went out to a very early 21-point lead, steam destined on trying to give it back as this was almost a backdoor cover. As if I'm not mistaken, I had the number at 4, I believe -3, -4, but they win by 5, coming in just over that number. But as far as the easiest play on the week, hands down, had to be anybody that had a ticket on the Miami Dolphins to cover that massive point spread. They won by, not sure off the top of my head, the number 25, 30 points, somewhere in that
They won by a
range.
lot.
Yeah,
They won by a
exactly.
lot. I know that.
Yeah, literally won by 30 points. I mean, come on now. This is an NFL game. We had if I'm not mistaken, it was a 10.5 point spread, and they literally covered it by basically 20 points. Or no, it may have been 9.5, whatever the number was. They covered it. This game wasn't ever in reach. Dolphins had 31 points by halftime. I mean, you just had to feel good if you had a ticket on the Dolphins in this game, which I did. So, of course, I was feeling good. And as I say, in that Colts game. So that was, my other victory on the week. Always nice to, rake in, that win week, getting, rid of that push. Uh, Looking to see, do a little repeat action this coming week.
Yeah, yeah. But we talked about the good, and we got to talk about the bad. And my worst pick was that 49ers at the Philadelphia Eagles. I had the Eagles +3, and they get their ass kicked 42-19. Obviously, I saw that 3 points, and the Eagles, at home. I thought, I just said, like, how could they not cover that spread? And boy, was I wrong. And I don't, even if you did have the 49ers, I just don't think you really expected them to just blow out the Eagles like that. But obviously, Vegas saw something in this spread, in this game, to not trust the Eagles. That's why they were getting points at home, and it was close. It was close. It was close till that second half where the 49ers completely separated themselves, and Devo had a great game. Has big run after catches. Hurts wasn't very sharp. Went under pressure a lot. Got sacked a few times there. And they're just not running the ball with him. And I think that's the biggest difference of this Eagles team this year and Eagles last year. They just hadn't been running the ball well. They haven't been running it with him, and it's really affecting their offense and kind of stifling it. And that's what's kind of affecting them. That's why they only scored 19 this one. But yeah, I think those problems, if they can't get Hurts healthy, they're gonna keep it's gonna keep them from really running him, and that may not be a good bet going forward. But we'll go to my dad, and he says he had the 49ers, and yes, he did have the 49ers, so he was right, I was wrong, and we can move on from that. But what was your worst play this week?
Well, I was riding with this same game last week. And like you said, for the first half of this game, it was a close matchup. It was a one-score game going into halftime. Um, I know for a stretch there we did see Jalen Hurts get a little banged up and miss some time. But at that point in the game, the 49ers are already starting to separate themselves from the Eagles. And, you know, the Eagles defense had nothing for this 49ers offense. And I think in a lot of ways, this 49ers team went out and made a statement to the NFL and said, look, we are the best team in the league, hands down. And if you got something to say about it, prove us wrong. Because, uh, I mean, we've seen this team win in dominating fashion, regardless of who's out there. Uh, when this team is healthy, I mean, honestly, I think the only way you can hope to have an advantage on the 49ers is if somebody's hurt or not healthy. Because when this team's healthy, I mean, you're talking about essentially an all pro at every position on the offense except quarterback. And Brock Purdy's continuing to show that he's not trash, and you don't have to go out there and be Tom Brady to make this offense work. As long as you go out there and are not Ryan Leaf, this offense is going to work. So, you know, as long as this team's healthy, I think, anybody in their way, you can look quite possibly to take the 49ers in that matchup, because I'm not sure there's a team out there currently that can challenge them.
All right. And then we'll finish our recap of week number 13. But before we get into week 14, we like to help you guys out. You guys can help us out by subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, and also hitting that like button. That definitely helps us out. And if you would really like to help us out, you can join our Patreon. The link is in the description down below. You can join any tier that suits you. But please do all that. We very much appreciate all that. But now we will get into our week 14, 5 best bets of the week. And yeah, I'm gonna start off with the Lions -3 at the Chicago Bears. I'm gonna stick with the trend, what the trend's been doing. We've seen the trend last week, and what the trend has been doing all year. of these road favorites being pretty dominant here. We saw last week a very dominant week for them. I think that continues into this week, and that's why I'm going to go with the Lions on the road as a road favorite. I think this line is even a little bit low, honestly. I think the Lions are a lot better team than the Bears. And I think they had a great bounce back win against the New Orleans Saints last week. Like they did cover that 4 point spread against a way better team than the Bears are. Um, and yeah, so I think they can definitely cover a smaller spread against a weaker team. Even though they are on the road and it is a divisional game, I get all that. But Justin Fields always finds a way to lose these games, or every game, because he's lost most of his games in his career. Um, and as long as Jared Goff, takes care of the football, as we saw him do last week, they can be pretty dominant on offense and put up a lot of points. So I feel like they're going to do that this week. And Lions 15-5 um, against the spread, 6-1 the last 7 road games, and Bears just 5-6-1 on the season against the spread, so they're pretty bad. So definitely like the Lions laying the points.
I'm riding with this exact same play. And as you, when I saw the spread, I thought the same thing. This line is too low. Why is this number this low? Um, Me personally, I don't, that you may have questions about Detroit's defense in this game, but I don't think Chicago's offense will be able to keep up with Detroit's offense. And I don't think Chicago has a strong enough defense to slow down Detroit's offense. We've definitely seen a couple players uh, stand out on the offensive side of the ball for Detroit. Coming into the season, a lot of people questioned why the Lions got rid of Swift as easily as they did. Well, they kind of showed you why, because I believe it's Jameer Gibbs. I'm not sure on his first name,
Yeah.
but yeah, Gibbs has just had a very wonderful rookie season. Um, Laporta quite possibly has been the maybe not the best tight end in the league this year, but if you remove Kittle and Kelsey from the conversation, he could probably make an argument for the best tight end. Um, but yeah, you also have St. Brown. He's I think we've seen a little bit less production out of him, but that being due to we're seeing more production come from other places. And so, while his numbers may not necessarily be as high as what we've seen in the recent past at this time of year per se, I think, we're seeing this offense click better. And I wouldn't necessarily say they're a high powered offense, but they do have the ability to move the ball, pick up chunk yardage plays, and get the ball into the end zone. And I think that's just going to be too much for Chicago to keep this game close and make that spread of -3 ever really be in danger. So I'm going to be riding with Detroit in this game.
All right. And it says he'll take the Bears because it might snow. And yeah, weather can always affect the game, but I think snow. I don't think snow affects when it comes down to who the better team is. Like rain does, rain can make it really sloppy. I think that more affects over and unders whether than more than who's going to win the ball game. Um, so if you want to bet the under, that's always a good bet because that's what under's been in a lot. But as far as whether the Lions can cover or not, or whether they can even just win the game, I still think just the better team just overcomes any type of deal like that.
Now, I will say, with the number being at 3 in a situation, say it does snow, I definitely feel comfortable with that number. Something I'll be keeping an eye out for, because I'm riding with this -3. If it doesn't snow, if we see this number jump up a handful of points pregame Sunday, whether it be bet up or maybe the books decide to move the number up because of a lack of weather. Um, possibly looking to middle the game or seeing where the line moves and uh, what angles might exist out there. Uh, so yeah, that may the weather definitely might be something to keep an eye out for in this matchup.
My second bet, I will take the Houston Texans again, a road favorite, minus 3.5 at the Jets. I'm just gonna go with the trend again, like I said before. Jets, obviously Zach Wilson is a reluctant to go back in the position. I don't know who they're gonna throw out there this week because they've just been going back and forth. Um, and it doesn't matter who's in there. I mean, they've looked terrible in the offense. They can't get anything going on that side of the ball. So whether it's Zach Wilson, whether it's any other quarterback that they signed, um, they're just terrible. I mean, they were terrible in every single major category on offense, whether it's scoring, whether it's passing, whether it's rushing or time of possession. They are in the bottom five in all those categories. They are a complete disaster on offense. They're not going to score any points. Texans got another win, versus the Broncos last week. Where they did it and without Dalton Schultz, without Tank Dell, and Stroud still found someone to get the ball to. He found Nick Collins for 9 receptions, 191 yards and a touchdown. So it doesn't seem like it matters who's out there. He's gonna find someone open. He's gonna get it to them, and he's gonna win the game. And that's what I think is gonna happen in this one. Defense can't be out there forever. They're eventually going to wear it down, and I think that's exactly what happens. And Texans can definitely cover a 3.5 point spread against the Jets.
Yeah, it might have to sound the alarm because I'm riding with this exact same play. I'm on Houston minus the 3.5. Um, you know, another one where you look at that number and you want to go, that number is way too small because yes, the Jets are just a complete mess. I'm not even sure I can be mad at Zach Wilson for being like, why are you gonna send me back out there? We've already tried this song and dance. Like, more or less, you're saying if I'm the problem, we know I'm the problem, and you're still gonna send me out there to get killed. Like, I mean, I think this just magnifies the dysfunction of what the Jets have been for at least my lifetime, and I've been around for 30 plus years. They have talent on their roster. I'm pretty, as a Panthers fan that doesn't have an actual a solid wide receiver on the roster, I'll gladly take Garrett Wilson if y'all want to get rid of him because y'all don't know what to do with talent. If y'all want to package up Bryce Hall with them, we can work something out. We'll make it happen. But it's not a lack of talent there, and so yeah, I mean, just there is nothing about the Jets that gives any inclination that this is going to be turning around this season. And I'm even seeing where, this number for this Houston Jets game opened at 6. And actually, money's coming in on the Jets side because this number's come down all the way to 3.5. So I'll
Okay.
gladly take the 3.5. I might have been worried at 6, but I'll gladly take the 3.5.
All right. Next game I got is the Bills at the Chiefs. I got the Chiefs minus 1.5 at home. I'm just gonna stick with the philosophy of good teams after getting beat down the previous week. They come out, especially when it's on national television. They come out the next week and they really come out strong, trying to correct all the mistakes and trying to make up for what happened the previous week. They try to erase what everybody just saw. Um, and at some point these receivers got to get together. I believe the Chiefs can. They do get up for these type of games, especially against the Bills, who they send like multiple times in the playoffs. So I believe they will get up for this game. And I think the receivers will actually catch the ball in this time. Bills are just they've always been very Josh Allen dependent on whether he's going to be up or down this week. And I think it's going to be a down week for him. I think he'll try to do too much because it's Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs on the other side. So he'll really want to force it in there, try to make it uh, do what he did in those playoff games. And he'll try to do too much, and he'll start to throw picks, and that's exactly what I think is going to happen. And that's why I like the Chiefs laying the 1.5 in this one.
Yeah, I was looking at this matchup, but personally, just both teams have been too inconsistent recently for me to want either side of this matchup. Um, I do, like the philosophy of the Chiefs being the type of team that would come back from a bad loss looking to um, capitalize and go out there and try and show who they really are. Uh, and with this Bills matchup, I think a lot of people, if you looked at this matchup at the beginning of the season, probably thought that this would be the number one matchup of the week, and no, because both these teams are struggling to figure things out. As you said before, the Bills have been very Josh Allen dependent, and currently we see him struggling a little bit, and as he struggles, this team struggles along with him. Um, so I I wanted to potentially take a side in this game, but I think there's too much inconsistency, and with that small spread, I'd just rather stay off of it because I could easily see either side winning by 7 or potentially, some sort of backdoor cover on some late game play. Uh, Now, moving into my third pick, I am not a fan of the double digit spreads, but if there is a team out there that's going to give you confidence in covering a large spread that's got two numbers up there, it's got to be the Miami Dolphins. We're coming into this matchup against Tennessee Titans, minus 13 on the spread. Honestly, I feel, like I said, I feel the Dolphins not only will not struggle to cover this number, but the Tennessee Titans are not a team that is built to keep up in a shootout. And when they fall behind, they struggle not only to keep up, but in ways they work against themselves because they're not accustomed of trying to move the ball through the air that much or as frequent as needed when you're playing from behind, and that leads to third downs, failed conversions, potential turnovers and interceptions. And with this Miami Dolphins offense, you better be able to, you better be like Usain Bolt off the line if you want to keep up, because we've seen this offense put up, 30 plus, 40 plus number of times. And I definitely do not believe the Tennessee's defense will be able to slow them down enough for the offense to have a chance to keep up. So give me the minus 13.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think the Dolphins probably going to win that much. And they proved it last week that they had a big spread to cover and they covered it. But I don't know. I just can't do it. I can't go with those big spreads. It's just too much for me. So I just stay away from that one. But my next one is the Denver Broncos plus 2.5 at the LA Chargers. And even the Broncos, lost last week. They got down a couple of touchdowns, but they fought back. They fought back hard, made it a one-score game with a chance to win it. So they definitely still have that fighting in them. Chargers offense, on the other hand, against the Patriots was god awful. They only scored 6 points against the terrible Patriots. Um, obviously it's because they don't run the ball or they just can't run the ball. They're very pass happy. Just Herbert was very inaccurate. And, that's just, just thanks to all to Kellen Moore's play calling, because that's just what happened. He does not call winning football. And, obviously, I have never trusted Brandon Staley as a head coach. And that, the Broncos were hot before that last game. They just ran into another hot team, and one of those teams was going to come out victorious, and it just happened to be Texans. But I still think they're still a hot team, and I think they can get it back rolling again against this Chargers team that kind of struggling offense right now. Um, Broncos 4-2 against spread in the last 6 games, and that's because of how hot they've been. So I like them. I like the Broncos plus 2.5. Getting points on the road here. We'll say what's up, those. Hey, what's going on, man? Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, we definitely gonna have to throw up the red flag because I'm riding with this exact same play. I was getting +3
Okay,
in
yeah,
my
we got a
book.
red alert. That's
Yep.
that's 3 of the same game.
Yeah. And see, folks, like we've said, we don't collaborate on our picks. It's more independent, and so we don't know what each other picks until we sit down for the show. Ironically, on my list, the Broncos were my third pick, and not paying attention, happened to skip over it and read my fourth pick, which was the Dolphins. And then I got to sit here and listen to my man come in with his fourth pick, Denver Broncos, plus the points. So, yeah, I'm riding with, like I said, I'm riding with the same pick. Yes, it is very difficult to trust the Chargers uh, in any game. I mean, what the hell? 6-0. Like, I think we have seen some of the more unusual scores this season. I know there was a game, if I'm not mistaken, it was Dobbs' first game with Minnesota against Atlanta. But there was a game earlier this season. Uh, if I'm not mistaken, it was either the first or the second time ever that the score at halftime, that score outcome had ever been that. Like, there was a safety, missed extra point, like some field goal. It was just that's what the season's been when we've seen a lot of these crazy scores. And 6-0, like, oh my God, what the hell? But I think that really epitomizes a lot of what we've seen out of the Los Angeles Chargers. And definitely, that the Panthers fired their head coach, and then we're starting to hear the rumor mills start up about people's names and so on and whatnot. I swear, let me find a reporter trying to push Kellen Moore on the Panthers. I'll kneecap them. I'll take them out back. I'll
Oh,
show them
that's
this
gonna be
nice little
terrible.
hole.
That
Yeah,
would
no,
be
yeah,
awful.
he can stay on the West Coast. People want to say the West Coast is the best coast. Fine, he can believe that out there and stay on the West Coast. We keep the barbecue and the fun times over here on the East Coast. But yeah, we don't need no Kellen Moore. Um, and this was, it was something that you as a Cowboys fan pointed out coming into this season, that
I
he
said
just
it. I
hadn't
said
seemed
they
to
weren't
be a
gonna be
good
good,
play
and
caller.
they're not good.
Yeah, yeah. And Staley, and he definitely doesn't add to that situation. So in this matchup, you know, I definitely think riding with the hotter team in the Denver Broncos, getting points, even though they're on the road. But is it technically a road game? Because do the Chargers fans even have fans that come to the games? I mean, you know, there's just a lot going wrong and just a lot of nonsense going on with the Chargers right now. So yes, give me the Broncos +3.
All right, we'll get into my final bet of the week, and that's the biggest game of the week. That is the Eagles at the Dallas Cowboys. My Cowboys are laying 3.5 points, and I'll lay those 3.5 points very happily. Obviously, we both got burned last week taking the Eagles. When Vegas knew not to trust these Eagles. That's why they were underdogs at home, even though they had only one loss. They saw it coming, and we should have saw it coming. So if they don't trust them, you shouldn't either. Cowboys won 14 straight games, coming off a 41-point performance on Thursday night, in which they will have 10 days rest that the Eagles will not. And that was a big point this week that a lot of people talked about was, oh, they all said the Eagles were, they played so many games in so many days that they were just, they looked tired in that 49ers game. Well, then they just got beat up in that game, and then they're not going to get much rest this week going up against the Cowboys, especially when the Cowboys are getting a lot more rest than they did. So if they were tired then, they're going to come in tired again. Dak is playing great, as he has been, this season. And especially he's been playing great at home, which Cowboys are at home in this game. Um, Eagles secondary still not good, still pretty bad, still giving up a lot of yardage, a lot of points, and that's going to tear up that secondary as he did in last game. In the previous game he played against them before. So yeah, like I said, that's just gonna if that didn't go out of bounds, we would have beaten them the last game on the road. I think the Eagles, like I said, coming to this game beaten up, ready for another ass kick, and Cowboys gonna just put it on them this week. Dallas 5-2 against the spread in the last 7 games. Eagles just 4-6 against the spread. So I definitely like my Cowboys to cover that 3.5.
Yeah, I was looking at this matchup, and the Cowboys are playing hot, and there's no way around that at the moment. They're playing the right type of football you want to see at the right type or at the right time of year, um, and you know that combined with the possibility, do we see the Eagles come have one of those bounce back games? Good team getting their ass kicked the week before. It's a divisional game. We've said time and time again how hard it can be handicapping some of these divisional games, just basically because regardless of what the rosters look like, regardless of what the season looks like, these division games can just be close, scrappy, hard nosed, hard fought games. And so, there's I think definitely that the Cowboys can win this game and cover this spread. I think where that spread sits, the book is hoping that this game is won on, a last second field goal or something of that nature. Uh, and I definitely think we could see, a 5-6 point victory out of the Cowboys in this game. Um, Yeah, but at the same time, I would not be shocked if we saw, the exact opposite, where the Eagles came in and won by 5 or 6 points. Uh, both team, as far as the possibilities or the capabilities of both teams can put up a lot of points, and both teams can win lower scoring games if need be. Uh, so there's definitely going to be, it'll definitely, I think it, you know, few times do we see some of these games live up to the title of game of the week, when the schedule makers and everybody are trying to line things up. And this is definitely a situation where, yes, this should be the game of the week. I expect some exciting football, whether, we see a low scoring, grinded out 17-20 game or something in the range of, 35-30. I think this will be the game of the week. And no, it is not my final play. So we have that to look forward to. Going into my fifth and final play, I'm going back to Minnesota and Josh Jobs. -3 in this matchup against the Raiders. Another road favorite. So something that hopefully I'll find myself with this trend continuing where the road favorites continue, at least in my matchups, beat up on the underdog. um you know I think it was inevitable that we'd see the pendulum swing back for Josh Jobs some. It's nature, it's natural. Yeah, at some point he had to falter, at some point he had to make mistakes. It was gonna happen. uh we said week after week just how that the Vikings seem to be playing beyond their means, and it caught up with them. Well, Another team that I think, for a few number of weeks was playing beyond their means is definitely the Las Vegas Raiders. And then in this matchup, I think we see, the Raiders return back to what we saw more in the beginning of the season. And that being said, I'm gonna be going with Josh Dobbs and the Vikings in this game. Uh, and I don't think that the Raiders will be able to put up points in this matchup. And even in a low scoring game with the spread that we're looking at, it shouldn't be too hard to cover. Uh, so and in the last 10 games, the Vikings have been 7-3 against the spread. So, you know, I think it's time to hop back on the Josh Dobbs Express.
Yeah, I'm gonna get off that train because last time well, I mean, I rode it for as long as I could, uh, but it derailed in that last game that he played. So I'm just gonna gladly hop off that and not get back on that train. But I hope for the best. Hopefully, it doesn't derail again. Safe travels. But I'm not gonna take that trip with you. But that is all the unless you have any other bets.
Um, you know, uh, I think one thing worth pointing out this past week, I've talked about the primetime game unders coming in a lot. I don't think we saw that in either the Sunday or Monday night game this week, but I do believe that that was an outlier, more matchup based. Um, but uh, in this Thursday night game, we see an incredibly low total for an NFL game. I think currently it's sitting it might be sitting at 30 and a half, opened at 32 and a half. So not only was it an incredibly low total to begin with, opening at 32 and a half, the market's telling you folks that number wasn't low enough. And even at where it sits now, I would feel comfortable taking the under. Now, yes, I am an under better, and we are considered to be, you know, a little bit crazy, a little bit psycho, because how do you enjoy being an under better and hoping for bad football? Well, there's a little secret to it, but it helps when you are crazy. Um, but yeah, I definitely think it's something to look out for in this Thursday night matchup with the under. Um, as well as we could, yeah, I think it would be an interesting play looking at the under in the game total of the Tennessee Miami game, because Miami could literally cover the spread and the under still come in this game if Tennessee is unable to put up points. We could literally see Miami put up 28, 30 points and Tennessee not put up more than, 28, 30 points. Tennessee put up only about 10. Yeah, see, we're still good there. So I definitely think, and we even have an extra prime time game this week with Green Bay in New York. Now, you want to talk about the potential for under? I think Green Bay, New York has that written all over it. Um, you know, I will say that I would lean towards the over of the game total with Philly, Dallas, but if these trends have shown us anything, those unders have been coming in strong, especially in these primetime games. So I would not shy away from taking a look at the under in all of these matchups, especially that one.
All right. I think that'll wrap up week 14. But just to recap, I have the Detroit Lions -3 at the Chicago Bears. I got the Texans -3.5 at the Jets. I have the Chiefs -1.5 at home versus the Bills. I have the Dallas Cowboys -3.5 versus the Eagles. And I have the Broncos +2.5 at the LA Chargers.
Yes, like we said earlier, you better sound the alarm, put up the red flags, because riding with three of the same plays, as I'm on Detroit coming in as the favorite -3, minus 3.5 with Houston as well. Uh, also on that Denver game. Riding with a lot. Actually, I just noticed I'm riding with all road teams this week. That'll be interesting. But yes,
Yeah, that's what
three of
I'm
these.
saying. The road favorites, man. The road
Yeah, and
favorites have been killing it.
three
Home
of
team's
these
been
being.
bad.
Oh yeah, actually, all four of these are road favorites. But you could almost make the argument that the Broncos could be a favorite in that game. But yeah, so yes, real fast, Lions -3, Texans -3.5, Broncos +3, going with the Dolphins to cover their big spread of -13, and going back to Minnesota with the Vikings -3 in their game.
All right. That's our bets for the week. Hopefully, you guys get in all your bets for this week, and you win lots of money. But that's all we got. You can tell the people where they can find you. DWeezy.
Yeah, y'all can reach me at Backyard Action Media here on YouTube and the Yard Bets on Twitter/X.
You can find me at NFLKF22 on Instagram and Twitter/X. And you can also find me on this channel on Fridays at 3 o'clock, talking Cowboys, talking Giants on Good Friends, Better Rivals. We will be previewing this week's matchups of Cowboys versus Eagles. I'll get into more detail why I think the Cowboys will kick the Philadelphia Eagles' ass. And and I don't know how Ferris is going to come up with a reason why they will beat the Packers, but I'm sure he'll find something to talk about. But we'll get into all that on Friday at 3 o'clock. So please tune in for that. That'd be greatly appreciated. But yeah, that's where you can find us. And that's our show. So like I always say, let's get ready to make that money.